just B1ing it if it comes through here, Bloxxer?
Surely. Surely you just grab that one for yourself immediately. It's been one of his best pickups so far, and it's also just so strong in the current meta. You've got a ton of different heavy roam-based compositions, and they can all pretty much always start with the Talia. Grab that one, don't worry about it. That one's going to be locked in right here. Now, AL, their decision-making's a lot harder right here, because that's kind of the cream of the crop gone. Either banned or taken off of the board during game number 1. You're a lot more free right now. You can potentially take yourself another roaming mid laner if you want it for Shanks. Or do they just slam the early aggression? I mean, you can just take the Lucian army right here if you think Hope and Kael are just better than their lane opponents today.
Or Poppy was also banned away in the first game's first phase. Looks like they're going to go with the Poppy. Flexibility with that pick, right? Tarzan's played it. Kael has a couple Poppy games under their belt as well. I'm sure Flandre knows how to play a top lane Poppy if he wants to get crazy, so a ton of flexibility. Quick thing I want to point out before we get to this next pick, Bloxxer. No team has a higher win rate on red side than anyone's Legend this split, so keep that one in mind.
They have been really interesting with their red side where, hey, maybe they weren't the best in their 1v1s necessarily, but as soon as they got onto the Rift, they were just destroying lane opponents. Is going to be the victor, a bit of a handshake in the mid lane. And this is the kind of aggression we were also hoping for in game number 1 on the Vi. You have to do it right here on the Panther. You cannot afford to stop.
Here we go. Roaming, global threat potential, and winning or neutralize lanes. That is what we expect from BLG here. Love this J Slam for Bin. You don't even know what Flandre's answer is, but in the current meta, like, there aren't really any options I see that would kind of knock Bin off of taking over top lane. So AL are just going to grab a high priority AD carry that might have been banned away from them. Hope had a stellar, maybe his best game of the series against Weibo on this very Ezreal in game number 3 of that matchup. So grabs that one, and the Lucian ends up going banned after all the hovering we saw.
Yeah, just gets rid of that one, and you make sense, right? When you've got yourself an early aggressive composition, like you've got right here for BLG with this early dive potential, you do just want to get one of the strongest bot lanes that can really bully you out, push you in off of the board early on. Once again, we are probably going to see quite a lot of bot laners banned out. We saw a ton of them banned out in game number 1. It's kind of what forced Elk onto that center that looked so rough for him here. You can also take away something like the Kai'Sa potentially. Yeah, like the backline dive potential is super strong right here for BLG. You want to get that one off the board.
Another draft where we're going to say, what does BLG's bottom lane really look like? Some of those more supportive picks. I got to say, this would have been a perfect game to get the Jhin for Elk. You've got a ton of damage on your top side already with this Jace. You don't need to bring a huge late-game scaler into this comp because the rest of BLG's comp doesn't really function well later in the game, in my opinion, with a Pantheon and a Talia.
Yeah, no.
I'm really intrigued to see what Big Way cooks up for this bottom lane. But there's still more to come here for the AL bot side as well. They're going to get Kael on the Rakan. Love that. Clear intent, engage. Definitely what AL were lacking, and they're going to likely leave, looks like Flandre counter pick up for last. Interestingly, despite the fact knowing they have the Jace matchup.
Ooh, I'm not a big fan right here of the hover of the Misfortune. I really don't think you've got the full setup for this one. And Elk with mispositioning errors in game number 1, giving him another heavily immobile champion that really needs the team to set up around him. They are going to go for it.
Though.
Yeah, I mean, you are kind of running out of bot laners already at this point. There's been such a heavy focus on towards those. You need to get yourself something that can really fight during the early laning phase right here. I think the Nautilus makes the most sense. It gives you a little bit of extra tankiness in engage that your composition really is lacking. They are going to lock that one in. And now AL, it's pretty open for them what they can pick up. Their composition already works in a lot of different ways. I can understand just going towards something easy, absorb the pressure in the top lane, and to be honest, we do sometimes see random Ornn solo kills in the top 2. This could be a great game here for Flandre.
And again, tying back to that last series win for anyone's Legend, I think the best Flandre game we got was him playing this Ornn in the final game 4 shutout game. He's getting tons of double knockups. And like you called out in this game, going to just play the role of Peel, right? You can see the clear appeal of AL's comp, again leaning into that team fighting cohesion that made them so successful in game number 1. They have clear denials of the Misfortune with the Rakan and Poppy ultimate. They have scaling threats with both Shanks and Hope on this Ezreal and Victor that are going to become kind of Exodia, and the protection around it. So after everything we saw in game 1, Bloxxer kind of feels like we land on 2 similar styles for both teams compared to that first bout.
Yeah, I mean, AL, the way that they're going to be able to play out these team fights is likely to be very, very strong. For BLG, they have indexed even harder into that early game. They really need to get things going. They've put even more pressure onto Beichuan. If you go 0 kill participation on the Vi in game number 1, and you do something even slightly similar here on the Pantheon, this champion is giga useless in the later stages of the game.
Yes.
They have at least paired it up alongside this Talia, so the roam potential between this mid-jungle duo can be incredibly strong, and they have to play through this. They have to spread the love into the top lane and the bot lane, play this more aggressive style, get AL uncomfortable, because if they let this game go into the super late stages, AL, they're going to be absolutely fine.
Much more polished in their decision-making and their fight timers. That boils over again to game 2. Things can get murky, but like you pointed out, this is another immobile mid laner from Shanks. Side lane threat onto him. Again, going to be the priority. The matchup that the AL mid laner was tense about, having to go against Knight. He proved his worth in game 1, but it's a whole best-of-5 series in front of them. Can BLG even us up at 1 apiece? We'll see if the Gyos from their ever-growing fan base will give them the energy to do so.
There is a reason that the Talia was banned during game number 1. This champion is so incredibly strong at the moment. The roam potential alongside the Pantheon really helps, but even just by itself, you know, it's in such a strong position, and you have a decent game for it to couple different people that worked ground is going to really annoy once we get into these late game team fights. Same thing for Tarzan though. That steadfast presence could well be game changing depending on when it happens. Multiple members of AL, Knight.
They're on a ward. Knight and On are on a ward.
I'm surprised that AL back off in that situation. I was very worried for Knight. At least Flash, if not life.
They do high-key have the worst level 1 I've ever seen.
Yes.
So, if they had the Nautilus, that's an immediate dredge line. But
yeah.
Alas, they'll just settle back in. It does make Flandre late to his lane, but oh boy, Ornn versus Jace. Flandre, hunker down, my friend. It's going to be a rough one.
Yeah, you get poked out constantly. You don't really get to use quite as much of the power of the Ornn, which is being able to just sit in your laning phase, buy those items, because you're constantly having to recall for health. We'll see if that's the way this one actually plays out, or if Flandre is going to be feeling himself in this matchup, potentially can go for those solo kills if you do step a little bit too far forwards. You constantly see people surprised by how much damage the brittle procs can do, even at this level of play. But very much, we're not really expecting too much in the way of solo kills top or mid lane. There is potential for 2v2 kills down in the bottom lane, but really it's going to be on what these junglers could do to carry their teams through.
I was starting to get nervous, Bloxxer. Whenever you see the boat race to level 2, you expect a dredge line to come out, but yeah, does not eat its mark. The focus, though, again, going to be on Beichuan to just get his first kill participation rep of the series in. Not like the Vi, though, where there's some level 3 gank potential, but you're kind of waiting for that Grand Starfall to come across to threaten, and Tarzan, such a great denial champion coming through for this Poppy. Junglers kind of took a bit of a backseat in that first game until the fights really broke out, but this is still such a pivotal matchup, and again, the strongest matchup we feel like in AL's favor, which bodes well that we haven't really said a lot about Tarzan yet, and they're up 1-0.
Absolutely. I mean, yes, it was a pretty quiet game for the junglers in game number 1. That's a bad thing, most definitely for BLG. The Vi cannot be as passive as Beichuan made it look during game number 1. As we keep saying, the Pantheon really going to need to be aggressive here in game 2. You can gank pre-level 6 on this champion. Post-level 6, that Grand Starfall obviously gives you that little bit extra as well. Shanks going to stop the recall right here out of Knight, keeping him both low health and low mana, so he is really just going to have to go and try for this recall once again. Shanks can stop it again though, buddy. Like, this... Oh, he just about doesn't quite have the laser back up again. Otherwise, that would have been really uncomfortable right there for the BLG mid laner.
I feel like I've been lied to about Shanks' mental approach to this series. With these small little...
He was sandbagging. Like, he was trying to pretend that he was worried about it.
That or Flandre is the best hype man you could find in the LPL. One of those two is true. Bottom lane, though, going to be skirmishing is Kael does get that first grand entrance and knock up, but not much more to materialize there. Both junglers, full clear, take the resets, have traded Scuttle Crabs, and now we're going to look to see where their priorities really lie, getting back out on the Rift here. We saw Tarzan get on that first Drake, almost on spawn timer.
Yeah.
And could have an opportunity to just do that again, as it looks like On and Elk trying to take a reset here. But
Ooh.
Dredgeline's going to land for On. Ton of damage down to Kael. He turns for the double knockup. Whiffs on both, gets slowed up. Does Elk want to force the flash to chase after? His health bar is too low, and Hope does a really good job making sure his support is able to get out from a scary engage.
And you manage to take a huge chunk back off of the BLG bot lane. They're not going to be able to push forwards anywhere near as far as they would otherwise have wanted to. And Tarzan is hiding off in the wings. Yeah, he's completely out of vision.
Okay, Arcane Shift forward. Elk immediately burns the barrier. Flash for Tarzan, matched by Elk. So that's the misfortune without both summoners. No Tarzan's going to be taking note of that going forward.
Hope, just so confident on this Ezreal, really has been very good on this pickup, very aggressive with it as well. And the Ezreal, when you've got a good Ezreal player, can feel so oppressive. Knight takes a decent chunk of damage. Yeah, you're not really looking for a kill right there specifically. Shanks doesn't really have the available damage alongside a Rakan to be able to pick that one up. But you're just showing up, making sure Knight is uncomfortable in this lane, potentially looking to at least blow his flash right here. Beichuan also shows up in the mid lane, so got a little bit of party in the area. Like I said, Drake is available. No immediate take towards AL for that one. Instead, it looks like BLG have got multiple members around. They could start that one up, but they don't really have the push in either the mid or the bot lane quite yet to be able to go for that one.
And we have a swap, right? So AL, classic red side maneuver here, initiate that swap, get Hope on the top side. Love this, especially leaving Hope alone. It's one of the biggest strengths, at least early game for this champion, is that it's really impossible if summoners are up to ever threaten a correctly positioned Ezreal in any lane state. So Kael just gets to roam across the map. The one thing that made him, in my mind, the real first-team All-Pro support, at least here from the LPL English squad, is that he is the best early game roaming support we've seen in the league so far.
You're not going to check this one, BLG? There you go. They're finally going to spot out the fact that Tarzan is picking this one up and at least push him away from that one. You're absolutely right. The fact that Kael can pair up alongside Tarzan so well and help him get his leads that he really likes to play around has been huge.
Oh, here we go. Horn down. Flandre tried to predict the flash there out of Beichuan, but he doesn't move because Shanks is getting hounded. On dropping the dredge line. Night Flight in with the Weaver's Wall. Now we have a really murky fight lines. Flash forward for On. Gets the root on to Shanks, but Flandre perfectly playing bodyguard. It's going to cost him his life, though. Knight, great flash away from Tarzan. The buckle makes it a trade. 1-for-1. But here comes Beichuan with the Grand Starfall. Shuts down Tarzan. Finally on the board. Kill participation-wise. 1-0-1. First early skirmish goes BLG's way.
BLG have tied their kill score for game number 1 already, 7 minutes into this game 2 here. And that's a much better look, specifically from Beichuan. Exactly like you said, right? He was aggressive with that one, went for the early play, pops the Grand Starfall as well for the re-engage to grab at the next little kill. This is exactly what you want to see. From Tarzan, I think this is just a little bit over-aggressive. It can potentially work if Flandre doesn't completely miss on that ulti. He wouldn't have really been able to deal the damage through with it anyway, of course, had that Aegis Shield up and available. Still, not quite ideal to miss that one. And then On, he's so aggressive right here, constantly stepping up. You're lucky, I think, to be able to at least trade this one back onto Knight. At least you managed to get one kill back onto this one. But really well played right here out of BLG. They're not in a strong enough position to be able to turn around straight back onto the Drake, though.
One Scuttle Crab makes the difference, by the way. I noticed that Beichuan smites away the Scuttle. That's why he gets level 6. So, Scuttle Crab value to the max in that little skirmish, and confidence maybe flowing back in those veins for Bilibili Gaming, at least for Beichuan, who is content with on to try and knock down these grubs. Gets the first one. Tarzan arrives to the party. He has ultimate advantage right now. Keeper's Verdict is available. Shanks off to the side as well, clearing out vision. No top laners going to be here for this skirmish, but doesn't seem like either side wants to do the deadly dance for now. BLG regroup, and they get right back into the grub pit. Beichuan has the smite available, so once again, going to secure the first 2 grubs and maybe all 3, but AL are hunting for a flank angle. Kael testing the waters, gets away from the sides of the shell. He flashes, but he still gets Unravel Earth stunned. Keeper's Verdict boots out On, as you saw there. Beichuan had tried to use the Unbreakable. Here comes a bullet time through, but Elk has to cancel it in the face of 4 members of anyone's legend. Bilibili Gaming, they just stuck around a bit too long off the back end of 3 grubs. Once again, just like game 1.
Yeah, they grabbed 3 grubs. In the previous game, it didn't look like they were able to use it. Knight's going to get jumped here.
Nori finds the second knock-up. The grabbed him well, does not get the stun. Like the idea from Flandre, but Knight, just so hard to ever catch him out.
And because of that roam up towards the mid lane right there from Flandre, Bin gets some alone time right here with this tower. Going to pick himself up 2 turret plates, and the TP now going to come in from Knight as well.
Wow.
They potentially think that there's multiple members on the way trying to catch Bin out. Want to give him a little bit of support right here and establish control before the Drake.
This.
Yeah,
he gets
why would you?
Out of his dash. Of course, calculated, cold, and calm as Knight. And finally, one of his TPs manifests in a pick play. Feats of Warfare secured for BLG.
Brilliant.
Knight getting a kill on the board as well.
That's much better map macro right here from BLG. They make it work in this situation. You said Flandre wasn't expected it. In what universe do you expect it? That's such an odd teleport to have come through. Such a random place to go for it as well, but it's exactly right. It just gets you a little bit closer to allow that Weaver's Wall to be as efficient as possible. And now that first Drake still on the board here, 10 minutes into the game. Without that top planer in the bottom side of the map, you can potentially try to start bullying onto this one, but still, neither of these teams really showing that they want to go for this objective quite yet.
You always have to be aware of the looming threat now that Beichuan could be a ways away and join in with one big spear thrown in the air, that Grand Starfall, likely hindering a lot of AL's more aggressive plays they want to make on the map. Nonetheless, Tarzan eyeing up that Mountain Drake is on a ward. But Bilibili will have an idea if this thing gets started up, or Tarzan just going to clear out that ward. And, well, the clear problem for AL growing in that top side, that is a 1,000 gold lead for Bin right now into Flandre. Want to utilize that as best as you can going forward if you're BLG.
Being strong right here on the Jace is huge. The extra poke potential that it gives you allows you to go toe-to-toe in a situation where otherwise the Ezreal would really give AL that poke advantage. And it'll make playing around these objectives that much easier. You can see right now, BLG, they're stepping up, they're buying themselves a little bit of space. And here, Tarzan just walks away, goes towards his chicken, so is probably looking to concede this one, unless you can pull something wild out through your bot lane and mid laners right here as AL. The Drake goes down to about half. Now you can see Tarzan is running his way over. He might just about make it. No, not quite.
With Shanks. I don't think he's going to be able to get in here. Kael gets canceled out of his grand entrance. Stun lock completely. Kael will not escape. Beichuan hunts him down with the flash, but Elk gets caught in the Graviton well. Arcane Storm doing a ton of damage. On is trying to bail out of this fight. Has Flash to get over the wall if he needs to, but Bin has arrived to the play. Going to slam down the hammer, and here comes the Grand Starfall. The turn from BLG. Can Tarzan stop it? He's going to try to get at least one kill on a Beichuan. He will trade, but Bin eradicates this play. Gold lead brought to the house and cashes in hard for Bilibili.
BLG, welcome to this upper bracket final. Nice for you to join us right here. Now Bin gonna jump in onto Flandre as well. Huge damage onto him. Ghost popped out of Flandre, attempting to get himself away.
Flandre. Okay, he's baiting for the TP. Ornhorn, knock up. Shanks trying to get here as quick as he can. Gonna get the Graviton well down, and Flandre perfectly baits out Bin, using all of his health bar to do it, and, well, he cashed in the shutdown I feel like he earned.
Yeah. Well played right there from AL to at least get something on the back end of that fight. Still, the main objective goes over to BLG. They grab themselves that initial Drake pretty late on that Drake take as well. 12 minutes into the game for that one. And we'll have a look back at the play. And I just love the aggressive re-engage right here. Kael, he immediately gets taken down, and you expect that to be over. But at this point in the game, right, On takes so much damage, and you think this one's done. Potentially, even AL, they can chase down a couple extra members, but Bin gets himself into the backline, and On Hope jumps away, and it just leaves Shanks out to dry in that situation. You're able to turn that one around into the next couple of kills as well for BLG. Yes, you get one back by Tarzan, but really slim pickings for what was good about that play there for AL. Without that top lane play, we'd be talking about them being in complete control. That one does temper it a little bit.
Awesome to see the big ways got BLG back to their winning ways, and this is exactly how they do it. They play the map like it's 6-on-5, and the victim going to be Tarzan and his jungle camps. No more buffs for you, my friend. It's back to the gray screen for a third time.
Apparently, Beichuan, he needed himself an even more aggressive pickup in the jungle than the Vi. I'm sure once they went behind the stage between Games 1 and Games 2, there was a big talking that BLG went, and hey, we've got to be more aggressive. If we play an early game-based composition, we have to make it work during the early game right here. If we give you an early game jungle, you have to gank with it. Well, BLG, they make a couple changes in the draft. They give themselves some lanes they can actually play around, some damage that comes online pre-35 minutes in the game, and right now they are making it work. You can see off the back of the turret plating dominating as well. BLG extending that gold lead out for themselves. They're now going to have a Rift Herald spawning in 40 seconds time. They grabbed 3 grubs for themselves, so if you can grab this one, the towers are going to be under massive threat right here for AL.
As you called out, the big piece of this gold lead right now for BLG, it's right where we were expecting it and we wanted it. 4-1, Knight in prime position to just 1v9 a game. You're starting to see why even his mid lane counterpart was fearful of this matchup, and if you don't believe it, you're going to see it as this mid game continues for the golden left hand of Bilibili Gaming.
And he isn't even at a point where he's even close to full build right now. You're still waiting a little while until at least that second item. You need the Leandries as well as that Seraphs to really deal your damage, and still, he's going to be so effective on this champion. The early play down towards the bottom side of the map really cracked things open for BLG. They're now going to start themselves up this objective. Teleport also going to come in for Knight. He wants to be available to the rest of his team. Leaves Flandre to the push in the bottom lane. But now you've got 5 members around this Herald. Do you want to go for this one, Tarzan? I'm not so sure.
Do not make the same mistakes that BLG did in game 1. Willing to give away those objectives. Love that read, though, from Knight. It's an Ornn in the split push with no grubs. There's a non-zero threat. Or, sorry, 0% threat onto that tier 1 turret with an Ornn split pushing.
Oh, yeah.
Do you want to commend AL's hesitancy in this game, this period? It's very hard, easy to get bogged down in. We're losing a lot on the map, and you can spiral and start making those desperate plays, but I think they understand well, Bloxxer, that their comp is designed to last longer as this game goes on, as long as the gold lead doesn't get too out of control.
Flandre level 10 right now, looking for that level 14 for those ornaments to start coming through. Later on into the game, this Victor going to be dealing massive amounts of damage as well. Right now, just got the rower, so we're waiting a while, another 6 minutes at least, until this champion's really going to be hitting, really going to be dealing damage. It's very much on BLG to make the map work for them as much as possible while their composition is in such a strong position. They're going to pop the Herald now down into the mid lane. Hope also takes a huge chunk of damage right there from the accelerated shock blast. That's going to make this tower defense that much harder.
Impossible, even. They smite away the Herald, doesn't matter. The grubs, the wave was in position. BLG going through the motions expertly. Big to see after a game 1 filled with blunders. They are just potent on the map right now. They're going to turn their attention to the second Drake of the game. Is this a spot where anyone's legend feel like they can fight? Flandre certainly says so. There's the Ornn Horde. Look at Tarzan, Keeper's Verdict. It's going to knock out the Knight to Leah. So 5 versus 4 on the table. Huge charms come across, but the bullet time gets so much value from Elk. He turns and burns all the health bars. Tarzan does steal away the dragon, so BLG have to find more off the back, and it's Elk flashing forward. BLG gets the first kill onto Kael. Beichuan flies in with the Grand Starfall. Hope sectioned away. Bin free firing on the chase. This is BLG just flexing their muscles over their opponents. It's only Hope to find a straggling kill, but one more auto from Bin sends it home, and Shanks is next up on the menu. The Drake comes at an ultimate price. It's an ace coming through for BLG. Unless TP? Shanks somehow TP's out. Okay, so he lives, but still a resounding win for BLG.
Yeah, BLG take that team fight massively. They grab themselves that tier 2 tower on the back end of that one, and it's just such a split fight for AL. They get completely scattered to the 4 corners of the rift, and BLG pick them off across the board. And I was questioning it, right? I'm not the massive fan of this misfortune, but right here, Elk, after a pretty bad game number 1 on that center, gets unlocked right here on the misfortune, and watch this bullet time. It completely dismantles what AO are looking to do. The knock-up bullet time, it doesn't even do that much damage at this point in the game, but it pins multiple members of AO into the back of the pit, allows BLG to step up, the Grand Starfall comes through, and at this point, the fight is split, and there is nothing that AO can do. They're just using the power of their champions to get a couple of kills back. They're lucky they get those kills back right here. At least they managed that one.
But now it feels too little too late for this scale-oriented composition. Good on Shanks to somehow get 1 kill and get out. Elk flashing forward earlier on in the fight doesn't feel like he wants to face check a Victor with just a Rod of Ages. But
look at the damage.
Look at the damage there, and look at that, just the sheer item difference, right? Especially in mid and AD carry right now. The raw damage you just can't match between Knight and Elk if you're Hope and Shanks, and as you pointed out, relief doesn't come very quickly for those two.
No, as we watch in the replay, just going to be the Ornhorn used to try delay this push onto the tower. Isn't going to work to actually save it, especially not with the 3 grubs available to Knight. You say the raw damage, and you're absolutely right. There's huge amounts of damage available to BLG, but interestingly, they're not looking to put all of it right here onto their mid laner. That's going to be a slightly interesting build early on out of Knight.
Right?
Yeah, he's looking to just slow his opponents down a little bit and open them up to being taken down by the remaining members. I like this adaptation, right? Between a Jace, a Pantheon, and a Misfortune, you've got enough damage right here, and you will still do plenty, but it's just a little bit less, keeping the opponents teed up for the remaining members of BLG to take down. We'll see how that works out for him as we get into the later stages of the game. He's also got 5 stacks right here on that Dark Seal, so he's still going to hurt.
My. Okay, Bin. Shows on the side wave, but one combo from the hammer stance. Tarzan and Kael do not feel confident in that engage, and with that little poke down and the wave completely in control for BLG, they're going to start out the Otacon. That deep ward does spot it out, so they see Elk taking this. Anyone's Legend, they smell desperation. They know they have to make this play. Knight with a huge Weaver's Wall, though. Nobody can get through, but Tarzan. Keeper's Verdict whiffs. Tarzan's knocked up and thrown to the wolves. Elk finds the first kill. Kael can't find the knock-up. Sure, Flandre finds it with a 2-man, but can Hope and Shanks bring enough damage to the table? Absolutely not. There's no way to match the power of Elk and Knight, and this time, it may finally be the ace solidifying a disastrous Game 2 for AL and a supremacy of Bilibili Gaming.
It looks terrible for them in game number 1, but game 2, with a more aggressive early game focused composition, BLG are back. They picked themselves up the Atakan, they picked themselves up the Ace as well, only losing their support for it, and now they turn their sights onto the towers, onto getting even more gold for their early game prowess.
This game is completely obliterated. Nearly 10k gold lead for BLG at 21 minutes. How awesome is it? Now across virtually 2 games that we've seen these 2 teams execute on how they've won so many games in the Rumble stage.
Wow. We were absolutely correct to be highlighting Knight. He's had himself a brilliant split so far, and that Weaver's Wall into Seismic Shove combo that just evaporates the jungler out of AL, the key member. We keep talking about how Tarzan is the beating heart, the driving force of AL. He gets one tapped right there in that fight. It obviously means they lose out onto the Atakan, and it means without that Poppy, you can't fight it. Shanks now getting jumped.
Okay, gets away from the Seismic Shove. Kael protects pretty well. The Gravitum Well actually stuns up both On and Knight. But hell, they're just too far behind to ever feel comfortable chasing these kills down. It's just a wallet diff right now.
Yeah. Absolutely, you're in a spot where your composition comes online later, you haven't hit those breakpoints, Flandre is still only level 12, so you're nowhere near being able to give over those ornaments, you don't have those 3 items completed onto your Victor, your Ezreal does hurt, but really is just having to run for his life throughout the majority of these team fights, whereas BLG, this composition has spiked really hard, they are in their best spot that they're going to be in throughout the entirety of this game, 2 items completed, 3 coming through very, very soon, 9 stacks on that Medjai's as well for Knight, so he's still going to be dealing tons of damage through that Rylai's. BLG, they need to keep the pace of this game up. They need to pick themselves up the Baron once it spawns here in 2 minutes' time. They are well and truly in control of this game.
Love to see Knight with a book purchase. Definition of a man with his swagger back. Got the mojo flowing. 14 of 17 kill participation as well for Knight. Just the Knight difference. It's what so many mid laners fear. It's what makes this guy the consistent best player in the LPL, it feels like, split after split, no matter how dim the lights look for BLG. As we highlighted, with one of their roughest starts of the year in so many splits, knowing how dominant they were in 2024, but all that could go to the wayside if they can win this series. A lot of that can be thrown on the back burner if they can lock in a 3rd straight MSI, something that no LPL team in history has yet to achieve.
They've just looked so consistent across the course of multiple years with this core of players that they've got for themselves. Bin, Elk, and On. So strong. Bringing Beichuan here into the fold has really helped them stabilize things through, but in this game, he's been very aggressive, a driving force, a main reason behind the fact that the other members of his team are able to be so strong. You can see it through where all of the deaths go in these games. Hang on, Bin, jumping, Flandre.
All right. Okay, Tarzan.
Oh, Tarzan!
The full ride there from Knight. They get the CC lockdown, but Knight, he has the Seraph Shield still. He gets the flash out. There's a perfect setup pick, but again, AL, they didn't have any damage dealers nearby, and Tarzan's not going to get it done on his lonesome.
Not quite able to pick up that little kill for themselves. AL, they would have really liked to have grabbed that one 30 seconds before the Baron started. That would have given them a lot of access into the pit, a lot of vision that they're really lacking right now. I mean, look at where the wards are. There's some deep wards, a great vision line available for BLG. They're
something got my eye, Bloxxer. Did I see something? I think surely On didn't just flash hook.
Shh, hush. It's not important. It's not a main engage tool. It's not a really big part of the way that BLG want to play right now. They thought they had an angle potentially, but I just didn't see it either. And clearly neither did AL, because nobody even flashes to get away from that one, right? They're chilling.
Hey, I mean, you want them to keep up in the tempo. Flashing for dredge lines is definitely that MO.
Absolutely. We'll now have to see what On can do for himself in this upcoming Baron fight. Is he going to be able to still make it work now without that key engage tool in his back pocket? We do see that third item now completed for Elk, and he's had a couple of massive bullet times right here in this game number 2. I was questioning the MF. So far, he has been making it work to perfection. Can he keep it up for this next big critical fight?
Anyone's Legend, silver lining in this gloomy state of a game 2. They do get Flandre over to level 14. That is an upgraded Triforce there for Hope, but again, it feels too little too late to just play the stall game if you're Anyone's Legend.
Yeah.
And as you called out minutes ago, they're going to have to contend with a Baron that BLG might just feel confident starting up, or maybe just look for a fight here on a Kael. He burns the quickness, gets some charms down. No damage dealers are close enough to punish Kael. There's the knockup. There's the CC layering. On is down first, and Bid teleports into front of 2 members of Anyone's Legend. Murky fight start here for BLG. Grand Starfall for Beichuan. Gets the flash out of Hope. Bullet time. Not going to hit on Hope as well, and there's the knockups. They've got Knight pinned against the wall. Another shutdown comes through for Anyone's Legend. They're down 8k gold, and somehow still finding winning plays.
Great aggression right there from AO. Questionable decision-making strikes BLG once again, and now they're going to have to try to fight around this Baron. There's no Keeper's Verdict from Tarzan to bop Beichuan away, and they are pretty low in the pit right now. There's
no bullet time for Elk. Bin doesn't have access to a lot of his spells. Beichuan, like you called out, can just go 50-50. Elk needs to poke down. It's Kael gets very, very low. Tarzan, does he want the fight? Does he want the Baron? He's still jockeying. He can't make up his mind, and that cost Shanks his life. Tarzan goes down. What a shock blast from Bin! Completely eradicates the fight. Slamming the door shut is Gigabin and BLG, Baron and Ace.
There it is, in the 3 versus 5 AL. They're taking too much damage to the Baron. They're taking too much damage from the poke of Elk and BLG. They nearly throw it all away. Like you said, they're up 10,000 gold, and they made it work for a second. But all of a sudden, BLG, they come back. They're going to take this game number 2. We get at least 4 of this series. BLG, they do not want to go down.
Just when we thought BLG were making the same questionable calls that ruined game 1, they call on their veteran, the 3-time MSI goer Bin, if they can win this series, just completely takes over this game 2.
Beautiful, beautiful last fight right there from BLG, as you'd expect though, considering how much of a gold lead they built for themselves during the early stages. I gotta be honest, Slayer, there was a moment there around that Baron where I was a little bit worried, but the Baron was dealing so much damage, and Elk was stood just outside of range, was being protected by Beichuan so effectively, and was just about able to keep himself going. Like I said, the poke as well from Bin, so annoying to try to deal with. Oh, their macro decisions haven't necessarily been ideal so far, have BLG, but in this game at least, they start the pace early and they just never let go.
Yeah, and they're showing that they can beat AL playing their style. That is my huge takeaway. 1, let's go, it's 1-1, we have a series on our hands. Luckily, BLG recovered 2. If you look across both these games, stock standard how both AL and BLG won a lot of their series in that Rumble stage.
They are not looking to step too far away from what we expected to be the best play styles for them. Specifically, game number 1, where BLG does step away from what they're looking towards, it goes horribly wrong for them immediately. You want to give your star ADC something to play around. Elk looked so good on this misfortune. He was able to find multiple massive bullet times. In that last fight, didn't even have the bullet time, and was still able to weave his way through on a very immobile, very squishy champion. Big props to him. I'd also like to look over towards Beichuan and say, hey, there you go, buddy. Nice one. That's a great way to recover, great way to step up in game number 2 after he has a really rough time of it on the Vi. 0% kill participation. They only had 2 kills. We called it out during the game, right? BLG had tied their kill score for game number 1 7 minutes into the second game, but Beichuan on the Pantheon looked brilliant. And
it always helps that you could, Mr. Reliable up there in the top side bin. You pick him the Jace. Again, that was a blind Jace pick, and we called it out from draft, right? Like, bin Jace, you can blind it because it's just impossible to counter the lead he's going to get in lane.
What do you do?
Well, the only thing you can do is, like, go for a late-game tank, but even that is a very, very soiled strategy there from Flandre, or anybody. It could have been anybody besides Flandre. It felt like bin Jace was inevitable, that one.
He's so good on this champion, and it gave them that little bit of extra poke damage that they really needed to be able to play out these fights, walk up into these slightly darker objectives whenever they were popping up, and be able to take up that space. Over on the AL side, I like the overall team composition, not necessarily into what BLG are playing. I think the thing that worries me a little bit about it is that it is full of so many very strong champions. The Victor looks pretty weak throughout that game. Victor has a terrible win rate at the moment across the world, and for a reason, right? Yes, if you can get into the late stages of the game and drop a massive arcane storm onto the heads of your opponents, big damage happen, looks brilliant. The process of getting there is so tricky, and it means that you just don't have a mid laner that's looking to roam, that's looking to get involved in these skirmishes early on really at all. The complete opposite of what a Talia is looking for in a game.
And it feels like it takes away from what we know Shanks for. We talked about him in the pre-show, how across his time getting to AL, he's been able to develop, newer play styles, make him more of a complete mid laner, but I just don't like Shanks on champions where he can't have any, flank impact, like big team fight ultimates with like CC. Doesn't feel like Shanks. You think of the Annie from last game, but also like hopefully we'll see him play a Silas game this series. Maybe he gets an Azir game. Those mid laners that can have immediate impact to a lot of those early skirmishes, that's what we want to see out of Shanks, and not take the kind of resolved approach, honestly, from both these solo laners. Shanks and Flandre, they're champions. They kind of just handshook having 0 impact unless this game goes late.
Yeah, you're hoping the Hope can push in the bot lane right here for BLG, but as we were highlighting, one of the best things about the Ezreal is that you don't have to get super aggressive right here. You can sit a little bit further back and allow your support to go roam around. That means that you're not really looking to win through that lane either. There's now 2 games in a row where winning lanes has really been the thing that allows either of these teams to pick up victories right here. Going into game number 3, that's again going to be incredibly important. And once again, we're seeing blue side be a little bit stronger. We do know that. We did highlight, right, that AL are a very good red side team, but I don't know, blue side, it just is better in a lot of these situations.
I'm glad you pointed out how, winning lanes have already affected this series. And again, in these two games, we've seen how each team utilizes them. AL, that first game with their winning lanes, they used it to just always rotate on the map correctly and kind of just chokehold BLG, not by team fighting, but always rotating correctly and accruing leads that way on the neutral game. And then game 2, what happens when BLG gets an early lane lead? They just throw down the fists, and every fight they take,
go in.
We go in with confidence, and if we have the gold lead and the item difference, no team can compete with us.
No, they just outpace their opponents. They just play at this level of aggression that is really hard to deal with, especially with a composition that doesn't have anything to really play around during the early stages of the game. Yes, Ezreal has a brilliant one-item spike, but Ezreal by himself is not a team composition mate. You cannot just hope that the Ezreal is going to be strong enough in this situation. That little seismic shove right there is probably the thing that wins the game right here for BLG. They were already in a good spot in this game, but it's a great Weaver's Wall into seismic shove combo. And from that moment on, I mean, what else can you do? Brilliantly played right here from BLG. So, MVPs, because I think there's a couple different options for who played this one really well.
You mentioned it, though. That last fight might have won the game for BLG. This progression here from Bin is what saves the game for BLG in my mind. That's my pick for MVP. I think it goes to Bin because
That's fair.
as much as Elk looks flashy, like the stat line, he plays really well positioning with this Misfortune. I feel like his great positioning was kind of handed to him in the sense that Knight provides a lot of value, and Bin being this far ahead, like there's so much attention brought to like those two alone that Elk could kind of just do his thing. Bin got this lead all on his own. He picked the great matchup into it, smashed it, wins the game at the end there for BLG. He's my pick for player of the game once this one comes through.
I think he's a great pick right there. The only other person I'd really be throwing the hat into the ring. I think Knight was pretty good. I wouldn't be mad about it going to him, but I think Beichuan really impressed me right here with this Pantheon performance.
Definitely a bounce-back game, right?
Yeah, I don't know if it's just so impressive because it's in contrast to a horrible, horrible Vi game in game number 1, but he was a big part of why Knight and Elk had the ability to play this game so aggressively. He was constantly pairing up alongside Knight, getting involved in these side lane plays. He was buying space and time for Elk to be able to find these big, aggressive plays as well. It was a really nice one from him. I do agree, though. Bin with that MVP. Like you said, like you highlighted, this dude did it all for himself. He didn't need the help of Beichuan to get him ahead, and he really did carry the team through.
It's one thing to get that, positive lane matchup. The bigger thing is to make impact, and as you called out, Bin was always at the most critical fights to just bring tons of damage that AL could not compete with. Anyone's Legend, much slower in this one, just could not match the raw aggression and confidence of BLG. Honestly, in Split 2, the Bilibili Gaming way of winning themselves games in series. But we are back to best of 3 territory here with 20 champions off of the board. Our 2 teams in the winners final have split our opening 2 games with a tripped MSI on the line. We're going to go take a break, and we'll rejoin for Game 3 draft to see who can find the win, the rubber match win, to force themselves to series point. All that and more coming after this break. We'll see you guys.